Welcome, everyone. So nice to see so many smiling faces at our Know What You Signed tutorial this evening. As you know, the League of Women Voters of Michigan has developed a PowerPoint and script. This will be available to our local leagues to educate their communities. There could be as many as 8 ballot proposals, plus a constitutional amendment on the November 2026 ballot. Petitions are currently being circulated for some of these proposals, so it's important to get the word out now. Just so you know, local leagues will receive a grant of $200 for the first presentation and $100 each for up to 2 subsequent presentations, up to a maximum of $400. To qualify for funding, we ask you to do the following. The presentations must be done between October 1 and February 28th of 2026. We have made a couple exceptions of those who we had some local leagues that wanted to do those last week. We're asking that the presentations be made to the communities and may be either in person or virtual. If possible, we ask local leagues to record at least one presentation for viewing on your website or your YouTube channel. You might want to consider partnering with other organizations within your community to expand your reach. Seek out local community venues for your presentations, such as local libraries, churches, schools, colleges, and clubs. The league or unit must report its presentations using our Know What You Sign report form, which is available on the LWVMI website under the members only section. And if you need the password for that, to access that, you can contact your local league president or you can contact me directly. This grant money is coming from LWVUS Education Fund, so it's important that you understand that this presentation is purely educational with no advocacy. Now, just to remind you, advocacy is publicly or actively supporting or recommending a policy or cause. We are not advocating in this presentation. We are only providing information. Because LWVMI needs to report to the LWVUS Ed Fund about the presentations, we ask you to complete a request form for all the presentations that you conduct, even if they go over the maximum for reimbursement. So tonight, we're going to review the PowerPoint. There is an accompanying script to the PowerPoint, which provides talking points for each of the slides. There are also included in the script is some FAQs related to some of the slides that contains questions that you may receive from the audience. So Lynn, if you want to bring up the presentation, we will get started. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, this is our intro slide, and this is the opportunity for you to welcome your audience to the presentation and also indicate the focus of the presentation and what it's going to cover. Next slide. Before you actually proceed with the actual proposals, we'd like you to at least let your audience know about some history of the League of Women Voters. Some people may not know that we were officially founded in Chicago in 1920, and also just to provide this information to them so they have some background of the history of our organization. Next slide. It's important that your audience also understand our mission, vision, and values. So we provided these statements for you in terms of our mission, empowering voters and defending democracy, and the vision and value statements. Next slide. And of course, we always want to emphasize our nonpartisan policy, that we are proud of our reputation of being nonpartisan by not supporting or endorsing opposing candidates and or political parties at any level of government, and always that we are working on vital issues of concern to not only our members, but also the public at large. Next slide. Okay, so citizen-initiated ballot proposals. Michigan is one of only 15 states that allow citizens to propose constitutional amendments, propose statutory changes, and invoke referendums to repeal laws passed by the legislature. In Michigan, citizens have the power to propose new laws or constitutional amendments through this initiative petition process. It's a form of direct democracy that lets voters shape state policy outside the legislature. It's also important to know that nothing in the Constitution may be altered without the approval of the voters. Any action by the legislature to amend the Constitution must be placed on the ballot. Okay, there are certain signature requirements for these proposals, and we actually have proposals in all three of these categories. We have some that are constitutional amendments, which means that they must collect a certain percentage of signatures based on the total votes cast for the governor's race in the most recent gubernatorial election. Those constitutional amendments do require 446,198 signatures at a minimum. We also have initiatives or amendments to existing legislation. Those also must collect signatures equal to 8% of the total votes cast for governor in the most recent election, which is 356,958 signatures required. And we also have referendums. They must collect signatures equal to 5% of the total votes cast for the governor, which is 223,099. Next slide. So the first one we're going to talk about is our Michigan Constitutional Convention. You may have heard the term CONCON. This automatically appears on the state's ballot every 16 years, and it's enshrined in the Constitution. And the wording is pretty simple. Shall a convention of elected delegates be convened in 2027 to draft a general revision of the state constitution for presentation to the state's voters for their approval or rejection? There are no signature requirements for this proposal because it's automatically required every 16 years. Next slide. There are three similar but separate citizen-initiated proposals that impact voting rights. All three require documentary proof of citizenship, commonly referred to as DPOC. It's a new acronym out there, requiring such documents as a U.S. passport, birth certificate, and/or other documents for new voter registrations, and also may impact those who are updating their voting records when they change their address. They also eliminate the option for voters who lack a photo ID to sign an affidavit attesting to their identity. So the first one on this slide is Americans for Citizens Voting number 1. This was presented to the Board of Canvassers back in May. And this one has provisions such as new registrants must provide proof of citizenship and provide one or more of those documents. As I indicated, eliminate affidavit alternative for voters without a photo ID. Also would require photo ID or a partial social security number to vote absentee. And violators would be subject to fine or imprisonment. Since this is a constitutional amendment, it does require the minimum 446,198 signatures. Next slide. Americans for Citizen Voting is number 2. This is the same organization. This was also approved by the Board of Canvassers. At this time, this is the ballot initiative that currently has petitions circulating out there for signature collection. Some of the same provisions do appear in this one as well. Require citizenship verification for all voters, both birth certificate, passport, and/or other documents. Also removing non-citizens from the voter rolls after notice and a 45-day rebuttal process. Again, eliminates the affidavit alternative for voters without a photo ID and requires photo ID or partial social security number to vote absentee. Next one. The third ballot initiative is Protect Voters' Rights. This is also a constitutional amendment. It would require the Secretary of State to verify citizenship of all registered voters and remove non-citizens using governmental records. Also has, again, the proof of citizenship requirement and documents for new registration, eliminating the affidavit alternative for voters without photo ID, and the violators subject to fine and/or imprisonment. Next one. The similarities, I meant to say this in the last one, the similarities of the three voting rights proposals can be confusing and could lead to voters mistakenly signing both petitions. If both petitions get through the signatures, the sufficient number of signatures that they need to get on the ballot, the one with the most yes votes will become law. So you can see there is a lot of confusion here in the three proposals that have currently been out there. Next one. Rank my vote. This is a constitutional amendment also that would require ranked choice voting for major federal and state offices. And to explain ranked choice voting as simply as possible, I found this example. How it works: everyone's first choice votes are counted. If a candidate gets more than 50%, they win. If no one has a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. People who voted for that eliminated candidate have their votes go to their next choice. This process repeats until someone has a majority and wins. Ranked choice voting is designed so the winner has broad support and voters don't feel like they're wasting their vote on someone who might not win. Again, constitutional amendment, it needs 446,198 valid signatures. Next one. Axe my tax. This is a constitutional amendment that would eliminate all commercial and residential property taxes in Michigan. This would cut funding for services like schools, libraries, parks, emergency services, and more. To offset the loss, increase the share of state sales, income, and excise taxes going to local governments. And it would also set new rules for raising local taxes and state taxes. Again, it needs 446,198 minimum valid signatures by July 6th. Petitions are currently circulating for Axe My Tax. Next slide. Voters to stop pay cuts. This is a referendum, which means it does not need as many signatures. But what it really is going to do is repeal Public Act 1 of 2025 by reducing the minimum wage, changes how future increases are adjusted for inflation, sets a new schedule for tipped worker wages, and removes fines for employers who don't pay the minimum wage. Again, it only needs 223,099 valid signatures 90 days prior to Election Day. Next. Invest in my kids. This is a constitutional amendment that would impose an additional 5% tax, income tax on taxable income over 1 million for joint filers and 500,000 for single filers. The tax collected would be deposited into the state school aid fund, and the money would be used exclusively on local school district classrooms for career or technical education, and also reducing class sizes and retaining teachers. Again, this is a constitutional amendment that requires the 446,198 signatures. Michiganders for Money Out of Politics, commonly referred to as Mop Up Michigan, is an initiative. This is an initiative that would ban political contributions from regulated monopoly utilities, such as DTE and Consumers Energy, as well as corporations that seek or hold large state and local government contracts. It will also expand the campaign finance rules to cover messages that name candidates or ballot issues, even if they don't advocate voting for or against them. This, because it's an initiative, requires 356,958 ballot signatures, and those have to be collected by May 27th. Next. Okay, those are the proposals. It's also important for voters to know that all petitions have to have an identification of the petition sponsor. The petition sheet must include, in 8-point type, the name and address of the person, the group, or the organization that's paying for the printing of the petition form. It also has to say paid for with regulated funds, and it lists the name of the organization. It's important for voters to know and to look at those petitions to make sure that that information is contained on there. Next. We encourage you to use our Know What You Sign graphic at your presentations. You can have these printed off. The QR code is great because they can access descriptions of these petition or proposals from our website. And we also know that petition gathering is also a time when mis and disinformation can occur. And we're hoping with the use of this information and the use of this presentation that our efforts to hopefully will combat this mis and disinformation. We do have local leagues that have been using this now at tabling events, and I think this is good to have this information out for our voters. Next slide. There are also a lot of additional resources we should make available to them. One is the Michigan Board of Canvassers has lots of information on how the Board of Canvassers conducts these sessions as it relates to approving the petition and the petition language. Also, Vote 411 is a great resource. The Michigan Voter Information Center was at michigan.gov/vote. And of course, we have lots of information on the LWVMI website. Next. We also would like you to take the opportunity during these presentations to encourage people to join the league. This slide provides them with information on league membership in terms of age, open to anyone ages 16 or older, and also how joining the league will make them members not just of your local league, but also the state and national levels. Membership provides them the opportunity to be actively involved in local, state, and national issues, and you can either encourage them to go to your local league website to join your local league, or refer them to the LWVMI.org website to join. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions because I'm sure you may have. I see a lot of questions in the chat, and I think that Lynn is going to take us through those.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, there's a few in here. The chat wasn't showing while the slides were up, so bear with me here while I go back through. In terms of questions, it says, please explain that the State Board of Canvassers approves the summary, not the merit of the petitions.
That is correct. The State Board of Canvassers approves a 100-word summary. They don't look at the merit of the petition at all. It's strictly if the petition, if the 100 words meets their criteria, then it will be approved. In fact, at one point, I believe the Americans for Citizen Voters, one of the 100-word summaries was not approved, and they had to take it back and represent it back to the Board of Canvassers again.
Okay, another question. Does Americans for Citizen Voting require an absentee voter to provide photo ID or partial social security number when requesting an absentee ballot, or every time they vote absentee? If every time, how does a voter accomplish this?
It's my understanding that they're requiring the photo ID or partial social security number at the time they get the absentee ballot to vote. And that's a very good question, Lori. I don't know how a voter is going to accomplish this.
Yeah. Let's see. The Board of Canvassers rejected Rank My Vote's description, major federal and state offices, as deceptive. Their description was something like all federal offices and governor, secretary of state, and attorney general. So that's from Chris.
Mhm.
I think he's clarifying.
That was my understanding as well, when they talked about all federal offices. And the state offices would be what we refer to as the top offices in the state, the governor, secretary of state, and the attorney general.
Right, and the only reason I was mentioning it is on the slide, you use that language that the board specifically rejected as being deceptive. So I'd suggest using what the board approved.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Let's see, does
Okay.
Public Act 1 do the things that are described, or are the items listed the things that will happen if Public Act 1 is reversed?
Okay, are you talking about the Constitutional Convention?
No, I think they're talking about the
Oh,
one,
that's
the
the,
changes in the minimum wage.
Right, that referendum.
correct. That's right, the
referendum.
referendum, right. Described are the items listed, the things that will happen. If the items listed are the things that will happen if they amend Public Act 1. Does that make sense?
It does when you say it. I couldn't tell when you were reading the script which way, what it meant, you know, which way it was going.
Okay, so if they gather sufficient signatures, what is on the slide is what would be impacted by amending Public Act 1.
It would be the end result.
Correct. And the script gives you very specific information on what those items are. I did not go into those specifics because what we tried to do in this presentation is keep the slides as clear as possible, but we gave you much more detailed information in the script. And that's why it's very important that you look at the script carefully and adjust your presentation to make sure that you include that information on the script when you're talking about those slides. It's hard to make these slides for a presentation when you have all this language out there. So rather than confusing your audience, that's why we have the script for you, so you can get more detailed in those explanations. Does that make sense? Great question.
Oh. Okay, question here from Vicky. Can we put that QR code on our local websites?
Absolutely, and we encourage you to put the QR code with the graphic right on the homepage of your website so that people from the public can see it when they go to your website. It will take them to the proposals, and that's the good thing.
Here's a good question. Does money out of politics apply to all levels of government candidates or just those running for Michigan state and local offices?
It's my understanding it's just for Michigan state and local offices.
Let's see. Somebody's talking about fairly certain League of Women Voters US allows all people, whether 16 or not, to join, but only those 16 and older can be voting members.
Correct.
Let's see, whoops. Can petitioners gather signatures at public rest areas like Claire, where they have been seen?
It's my understanding they can collect signatures in any public area, whether it's a rest area, outside a grocery store. And you know where you've seen signature collectors in the past. Most of the time they'll hang out at like markets, place where there's going to be big crowds of people where they can get a lot of signatures. But there's nothing wrong with the rest area.
Are there laws about whether constitutional amendments, initiatives, or referendums require majority vote or supermajority votes?
It's my understanding it only requires majority vote. No supermajority.
Some states have that, but I don't think Michigan does.
Mhm. Right.
Why are there two voter petitions from the same group?
Mhm.
Good question.
They seem quite similar.
We have the same question, why there are two initiatives by the same group. They filed them both and they were both approved. But as I mentioned earlier, number 2 is the one where currently the petitions are being circulated. We haven't seen anything out there with number 1.
Here's one, says, out of curiosity, do you have any idea how signature gathering is going for these proposals?
I don't, Chris, and I think the reason is it's so early in the process that, you know, if they've just really started being out there, I think in August, September, I think we started seeing some in August. But at this point, I think it's just too soon to tell.
Here's a good question. Will the language be the same on the ballot as it is on the petition if it gets the required signatures?
That's a good question.
Mhm.
I know Judy Karanchev's on this call, and don't want to put her on the spot, but Judy, do you know the answer to that question? Is she here?
She was. Maybe
Roberta.
yeah.
She answered in the chat.
Oh,
Oh,
I
I
think
didn't get that far.
it has to be the summary. The summary that's
Yeah.
on the petition is what is on the
Mhm.
ballot usually.
that's my guess too. Thank you, Judy. She doesn't know for sure either, but my guess is it's probably the summary that's on there.
Someone's asking, when will we have the League of Women Voters of Michigan positions?
Do you want to answer that, Lynn?
Yeah, the positions as they come out will be in our advocacy section on our website. So I would check there.
And that's a good point that Lynn makes. If you get questions from people in your audience about the position that the league is taking on these proposals, that gets into advocacy. As I indicated early on, this is clearly only an educational presentation. So the best thing for you to do is just refer them to the LWVMI.org website, and they can check under our advocacy section on the homepage.
Let's see, here's another question. Why on the first slide is there no exclamation point in the know what you sign?
One exclamation point or 2 or 3? Great question.
Yeah. Let's see, another one. There are several more petitions listed on the Board of Canvassers website. If they approve additional petitions between now and February, will you provide additional slides for the presentation?
Absolutely. And that's the challenge with the number that we're dealing with right now. We're trying to keep up as much as we can on what's happening at the Board of Canvassers meetings. We do have members that attend those regularly. So we know very quickly which ones have been approved, and we will be adding those to the list on our webpage, the PDF file. And we will certainly update the presentation as well.
Great question. How long is the presentation from the script expected to take?
I think you can probably do this presentation between 15 and 20 minutes. It depends on when you decide to take questions. Most of the time when people are doing a presentation like this, they prefer to hold the questions until the end. And that way you don't interrupt the flow of the presentation, and you can cover all the information before you get to the question part of it. So if you do it that way, then I would say 15 to 20 minutes max, you should be able to cover it.
Okay, and there's a comment here about the minimum wage referendum proposal. It says the minimum wage referendum proposal would repeal the bipartisan compromise act signed by the governor. The league's explanation, even in the script, does not tell the whole story.
That was me.
Oh, Susan? That was Susan?
Yeah, I'm trying to print off my timeline. You could almost write a novel about how we got here. Some people are laughing. Okay, was it 2018, 29? I can't even remember. There was a ballot proposal, referendum, a ballot proposal to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour and do some other stuff. There were two of them, one about sick leave and one about the minimum wage. The legislature so panicked, right? Whoever else knows this history, that they passed a law, that they passed that referendum language into law and immedately amended it, gutting it, because they were so terrified by it. Then happens about 4 years worth of lawsuits ending in 1924. In 2024, 1924, 2024 was the Supreme Court saying, look, guys, you cannot adopt the language and amend it immediately in the same session, a referendum language. You can't do that. So your amendment, the one that gutted the original language, is null and void. So what was left was the original language that was going to be a referendum on the ballot that the legislature adopted, and then immediately, because they knew it would pass. They knew it would pass. So the small businesses in the state went crazy because it was going to ask them to do things and raise the minimum wage for businesses the size of something. And so they were very upset and wanted to weaken it. They didn't necessarily want to do away with it, but they wanted to weaken it. Then proceeded this big effort, and a bipartisan compromise bill was passed, which is Act Number 1 of 2025, signed by the governor and everybody, which took that original proposal. It did water it down a little bit, but the core of it was left. What this wants to do is to go back to the original. Like I said, you could write a novel on this. I don't know whether anybody wants to know that whole story or not. I mean, yeah, it would reduce the minimum wage requirements of that way back original proposal, but it was done in the interest of a lot of small businesses that were very concerned about what it was going to do to them financially. So everybody got around this compromise. So say Act Number 1 is a compromise, and that's the one. And now the risen from the ashes was the original group that proposed it way back in 2018. And they're trying to repeal the compromise. So that's what this is about.
Susan, I appreciate the history because some of us remember that history from many years ago. But for our purposes in this presentation, we just need to concentrate on what this would do now with the proposal.
I understand, but I don't know how you can. Yeah, I suppose technically that is correct, but I don't know if this is to be an education, then people really do need to know what they are doing. What are they really voting for? And I think the story of the legislation is important. Now, maybe you're right. Maybe that's way too much information for people. Maybe that's true, but I thought we were supposed to inform people, and I think they need to know that story before they just willy-nilly say, oh my gosh, it's going to cut people's salary, I'm going to vote for it. And undo the carrot. We are so desperately needing compromise around the country that I hate to go after a compromise. So I guess I would disagree in that what we have said on this, tells you literally what it would do, but it doesn't tell you the background of it, which I think is very important. So maybe I shouldn't be doing this presentation. I wouldn't be able to stop myself. Anyway,
It's
I
hard
think
when there's that much passion, I know, with behind every single one of these, there's more to it than the facts on the
Right.
paper.
Exactly. But thank you, Susan. I appreciate
Yeah.
your perspective.
Let's see. Could there be more detailed explanation of how passing any of these, that's kind of the same type of thing of these, whether amendments, initiatives, or referendum would affect voters? It gets beyond the purpose of the presentation.
Yeah, and I think I do want you all to know, this is the educational piece. Once these proposals, whichever ones end up getting the sufficient number of signatures to get on the ballot, then we will have more information available in 2026, because that's when it's going to happen, right?
Okay.
But that's the advocacy piece of it. Right now, we just want people to know there's petitions out there. We want you to just be aware of what these petitions mean before you sign them.
And there are people who are petition gatherers who may not be necessarily telling the truth. So it's important for folks to know the facts about what's really on these, as opposed to somebody that's just trying to get you to sign so they can get $4 for a signature.
Right.
Whenever you want it, let me know.
Let's see. What is the legal difference or effect of the three types of petitions? It says, oh, I think there's already a question that asks this. So I guess you're looking at the difference between a constitutional amendment, a referendum, and an initiative, correct?
Right. Well, that is explained, I believe, in slide number 6. You know, the one is a constitutional amendment that's actually going to amend the Constitution. One is an initiative based on legislation. You know, so if you go back to your script, I think you'll see that explanation. If you have any questions, you can contact me privately.
Let's see, where do these proposed constitutional amendments get fleshed out? For example, in the 3 American citizens voting CAs, how do we know what documents would suffice for proof of citizenship? Married, divorced women who without passports would likely have a birth certificate that doesn't agree with their driver's license. Would they need to present marriage certificate, divorce decree, etc.?
Well, for the American citizens, for voters, it's pretty clear, I think, on what they're going to require: passport, birth certificate, or other documentation. The protect voters' rights, it's not really clear what's going to be required in some cases. And so we know it's going to impact those who are married and the name on their birth certificate doesn't match their passport, for example. So I'm not really sure how we can determine the total impact, other than it could impact married women, low-income voters, that type of thing.
Yeah, because your voter registration is unlikely to be in your birth certificate name.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So they're not going to match.
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to require something additional for you to provide
For
to
women.
make it for women, married women, to make it match.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, do we know which petitions are using paid circulators?
I believe all the petitions are using paid circulators. I'm not aware of any that aren't. Has anyone?
Rank My Choice is not using paid circulators yet, but they probably will.
Okay. That's good to know, Alice. Thank you.
See, Deborah Kimbrell also says it could impact transgender people whose birth genders do not match their passport gender or driver's license.
Right.
Thank you, Deborah. Catherine, you wanted to hear Janet's question? What is the legal difference, that one?
It's okay, it was answered.
Okay,
I just didn't know if it'd get there. Thank you.
okay,
Okay,
thank you. Let's see. Are we able to refer people to the full language for each of the proposals referendums?
we can. I believe our PDF form that's on the LWVMI website that they can access with the QR code does have the 100-word summary for each of them. Are you looking for something more than that,
That's from Cheryl.
Cheryl? The 100-word summary is what's going to be on the petition, so. Where's Cheryl?
That's what I
Okay.
was at. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay,
Russ?
thanks, Cheryl.
Let's see, after a petition is approved, it would go to the appropriate arm of the government to write administrative rules for implementation. Okay, that's answering another question. I guess they're just making a comment.
Well done.
Says it might be important to let people know that the full text of the petition is on the Board of State Canvassers website. Okay, there you go, Cheryl. And that if a petition is passed, there may be legislation required to implement its provisions.
Correct, and one of those resources on the slide was the Board of Canvassers website, so you can certainly refer people there if they really want to get into the nitty-gritty, the weeds of the language. They could certainly find it there.
And Lori is mentioning that doesn't the reverse side contain the full language of the proposals? I have seen that. I haven't.
I have to.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
You're
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Chris,
Oh,
I have a
interesting.
question about what
Carries.
what do you say when people say, what does it matter whether I sign it or not? Just let the people decide.
And that actually comes from my young and foolish days when I used to say, oh, just sign it and let people decide. How do we answer? What is your suggested answer to that?
So what was the question again?
So I run the common theme is when I was young and foolish, I would just sign it so the people could decide. And we're encouraging people to not sign it. And that's actually my position now that I read them a lot more carefully. I'm much older. But the question is, how do you answer that question? Why not just sign it and let people decide?
Chris, first, thank you for that, but I want to correct you. We are not encouraging them to sign or not sign. We are saying, know what you're signing. What we're trying to do is educate them on what these proposals are. We are not saying in this presentation, you should sign this or you should not sign it. That's the advocacy part of the equation that is not part of this presentation. So I really want to make that clear to all of you that that's not something that you're going to say in this presentation, that the league wants you to sign it or doesn't want you to sign it. That's not the purpose of this.
Yeah.
But we do want them to sign it only after they've informed themselves.
We want them to educate themselves on whether or not they want to sign it.
And the question is, why?
Because we'd like them to be an informed voter. That's my answer.
Okay. I actually ran into that conversation with a petition gatherer.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And what did the petition gatherer say?
Well,
Would you like
he
to share it with
came
us?
out, what the petition gatherer said, do you want to sign a petition? I said, no. He said, well, why don't you just sign it and let the people decide? That was the next words out of his mouth.
Okay.
And
interesting.
that, I've seen it before in previous years also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's my understanding they're getting paid $4 a signature, so they're just
Mhm.
after the signature and that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Teresa, you've been very patient with your hand raised before we go back to the chat. Sorry.
I have been. So I want to go back to the thing about the explanation of the different, whether it's an amendment, an initiative, or referendum. What I was saying was, I'm sure there will be people in the audience that will ask, well, what is the difference in a practical sense? What happens after this passes? If it's an amendment, what happens to, as far as the legislation and what it would mean to an individual person? It doesn't mean to explain each one of those, but what's the difference between an amendment, an initiative, and a referendum?
Well, a constitutional amendment, an amendment will change the Constitution. It will amend the Constitution. So it becomes permanent in your Constitution until it is changed. An initiative or an amendment in existing legislation, I'm not so sure I can answer that.
But I'm saying, I think that I'm sure there will be someone in the audience that will say, well, what is it? What does it mean? And I'm just thinking it should be part of the slides that are presented.
And
Well,
Teresa,
I can certainly add that to the script if you'd like me to do that for slide number 6. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so I can add that to describe the differences between the three.
Yeah. I
We
think
can do
that would
that.
help.
Yeah, rather than redoing the slide, because I think the slide looks, it has good information the way it is. But you're right, we can add that, certainly add that to the script, and that will give you more information, because you're right. You may get that question from the audience, and I'm certainly glad to do that.
Thanks.
Thanks, Teresa.
Let's see, did League of Women Voters of Michigan endorse the decline to sign project? So this is off of this particular presentation. This is not something you would bring up.
Right.
But we have signed on to the Promote the Vote Action, No Red Tape for Michigan Decline to Sign project, which is directed at the documentary proof of citizenship petitions that are out there. So
Right.
that's the one that we have joined, not the general decline to sign everything, because there's
Right.
some that we haven't taken a position on as yet, so we can't make that statement.
Yes, that was strictly related to the voting rights proposals. But again, that's not something that you would mention in this presentation. And we
If
do
someone asks, you can refer them to
the website. Right. But I also want you to understand too, we encourage you as league members to support or endorse any of these proposals as a citizen of the state, but not as a league member. That's the difference.
Let's see, many don't have the box checked as paid or volunteer and lie, or at the least have no idea what they're circulating. Yeah, that's unfortunate about petition circulators. Yeah. Is there a way to report circulators focusing on voting rights? Oh, wait, who have not checked that paid volunteer box? I don't know.
What was that question?
Is there a way to report circulators who have not checked the paid volunteer box on the petition?
Well, I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I also know that if they turn in the petition and it still isn't checked, the petition would be invalid. But I don't know if there's a way to report a petition circulator. I can't answer that. But I will research it and let you know.
Let's see. Jerry mentions that VMP declined to sign is only focusing on the voting rights proposals. And someone else mentions that would be a reason not to sign if the box isn't checked.
Good point.
And that brings us to the end of the questions. Oops, there's a couple more. Is the petition circulator signing name when petition filled? I believe they have to. when they-
Yes, they have to have their name and they have to sign the petition before they turn it in. Is that your question, Vicky? You're muted.
Oh, she can't unmute. Okay.
Okay. Cheryl, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
That's a yes or a no? Yes? Any other questions or comments?
Okay, I've
Vicky?
unmuted.
Okay.
Okay, when we circulate petitions, like for local elections, the petition circulator signs when the petition sheet is filled. So Mike, when it's saying to check if he's a paid or not paid, is that part of that lower right-hand box?
I think so.
So the person wouldn't necessarily be checking that off until the petition is filled and it is submitted.
Mhm.
And then if they forget to sign, blah, blah, blah. And then I had a question up here earlier.
Hang on.
Okay.
Eileen says it's at the top of the petition, not the
Top,
bottom.
at the top, okay.
Mhm.
And then my other question had to do, would it be helpful to have a slide at the end that says LWVMI will study these, if these make it to the ballot, LWVMI will develop positions for or against as fits in with our policy, just so that people know that could be coming down the road. Right now, it's just informational, and that kind of reinforces we're not taking a position right now.
Well, that brings the advocacy piece into it, which is not part of the presentation.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
just saying that this is not, that to say that this is informational. The advocacy is separate and a decision would be made down the road. Isn't that just informational? I don't know. I probably won't making any of these presentations. So.
It's a fine line.
Yeah.
It's a fine line. But I appreciate the comment.
Judy mentions in the chat, we will have educational presentations on ballot proposals that are going on the ballot.
Right.
So there will be more coming. Someone asked, initiative can either be for a constitutional amendment or legislation. Do we know what money out of politics is focusing on?
In terms of it being an initiative?
It's an initiative, but it could either be for an amendment to the Constitution or legislation. Do we know what their initiative is asking for?
It's not an amendment. It's not an amendment to the Constitution.
But that initiatives can request that they amend the Constitution. So I don't know if it says on their ballot or their petition language what they're asking for.
I don't believe they're asking for a constitutional amendment, but if anybody has anything to dispute that, Jerry Biggs?
Yeah, hi, I'm actually circulating that one. It's a legislative amendment because it's a very specific one. Because of all the moving parts in Citizens United, they couldn't really go for a constitutional amendment.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. And it looks like Judy's put her email address in the chat. If you have questions that come up or think of something later and you want some additional information, please reach out. I think we're at the end of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, and I also just want to say too, I will make the changes to the script and send it out. Let's see, does everyone who's on the call now have a copy of the script?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, what I will do, I'm trying to figure out the best way to distribute. We can either distribute to everyone on the call, or we can just send it to the local leaders and presidents and have them distribute to their members.
We could do both.
Okay. We'll do that because we have a few changes based. And I want to thank you for all your great questions. I can't remember a time when we've had this many ballot proposals facing us and so early in the process, of course, too. because, you know, 2026, it's far away, but not as far as we think. Christina, do you have a question? Get you in under the wire.
Yep, just asking if you would make sure you would clearly state what version of the script and the PowerPoint that you'll be sending out to us. Because when you get multiple copies like that, sometimes you wonder, is this the current one or whatever the case may be.
Okay, we'll be happy to do that, and I'll
Thank
put a
you.
date on it so we know the date that it was updated.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, again, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank you. If you're going to be doing presentations, thank you for educating your communities. You know where to find me if you have questions or concerns. In the meantime, it's 7:59, so we're going to let you go a minute early.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Judy.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.